don't want you to know what it feels like to keep all of this pain so concealed. Like I want out of this plane, I told my psych, you don't need to, you don't need to. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole life's a passing fad. You'll remember the times we had, the times we had, yeah. All these pleasures my brain can't have, I want out, so please don't be sad. Give it up cause I'm getting out, don't be sad, you could let it out. All this shit I'm forgetting now, my whole life I've been checking out. All I said you could send it out, light it up, now I'm headed out. This is the end of my part now, we will be never apart, no. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. Don't leave, I need you with me. Don't die, I need you alive. Don't go, don't leave me alone. You said, yeah. My entire life feels like one big mistake, and all these pills inhibit re-uptake. I can't arrive at any reason to wait. Take it one at a time, only take it one night at a time. And I don't care cause I don't give a take. From this world so superficial and fake, in all your joys I simply cannot relate. Take it one at a time, only take it one night at a time. I say goodbye, it's getting late now. Please don't cry, you'll know I made it out. Say goodbye before I fade out, before I fade out, before I fade out. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole life's a passing fad. You'll remember the times we had, times we had, yeah. Let it out, all the shit I'm forgetting now. My whole life I've been checking out. All I said you could send it out, light it up, now I'm headed out. I don't want you to know what it feels like to keep all of this pain so concealed. Like I want out of this plane, I told my psych, you don't need to, you don't need to. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole life's a passing fad. You'll remember the times we had, the times we had, yeah. All these pleasures my brain can't have, I want out, so please don't be sad. Give it up cause I'm getting out, don't be sad, you could let it out. All the shit I'm forgetting now, my whole life I've been checking out. All I said you could send it out, light it up, now I'm headed out. This is the end of my part now, we will be never apart, no. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. Don't leave, I need you with me. Don't die, I need you alive. Don't go, don't leave me alone. You said, yeah. My entire life feels like one big mistake, and all these pills inhibit re-uptake. say goodbye, it's getting late now. Please don't cry, oh no, I made it out. Say goodbye before I fade out, before I fade out, before I fade out. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole life's a passing fad. You'll remember the times we had, times we had, yeah. Let it out, all the shit I'm forgetting now. My life I've been checking out, all I said you can send it out. Light it up, now I'm headed out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the zoo. I am the Rusty Panda, and I am here for you. Today we've got Robbie in the house.
Hey, everybody.
I try to make it as exciting as possible.
Nice. I love it.
Robbie!
Explosion, fireworks. There you go. Nice.
So, for those of you who have never been to the show, this is Wiki Wednesday, the show where we ask the streamer 15 things they like, 5 things we don't, and go down the Wikipedia rabbit hole learning some things about the streamer. And an ad break is just now started.
Yeah.
For those of you who are still here, thank you. I'm just gonna write ads. In 13 seconds, we'll continue this conversation.
For sure. But yeah. Gotta love ads. At least you get to see them. I don't even turn mine on because I do a podcast, so like I just go and like, I can't really stop because I'm on different platforms. Like,
no, I from now on I won't stop for the ads, but I'm introducing the show. And I want to make sure everybody knows what we're doing.
Yeah, 100%.
So basically, we go down the Wikipedia rabbit hole, learning things about the streamer and learning things ourselves. So if we want to go ahead and get started, welcome in Carly Sings, Primordial Sounds, Davey. I saw
Oh, Stuart's in there. The mod father himself. That's cool.
Yeah, Stuart. There we go. Carly, it's really good to see you. I see you normally in Willow Keys streams, so it's cool that you're here. It's cool that everyone's here.
It's been a long time. Carly's actually no longer on during the days anymore, which is like when we saw her on Will. So she has a day job, so it's nice that she's spending her nights with me. She still mods over on my channel, so I appreciate that. Both her and Andy at Primordial Sounds are both mods of mine, so I appreciate them for stopping by.
They says they are a professional team.
No, there's a lot of mocking going on, and I'll have to try to clarify whether or not Stuart is a Boston fan or a Winnipeg fan tonight in chat. So we'll see who he's representing. But both are doing better than the Capitals, who were honestly in a rebuilding year. But I'm sure we'll get into it.
We'll get into it, I'm sure. Yeah, the thing about sports is that I know a limitation. Sports is new to me in the last 2 years.
Okay.
I've always been a Rangers fan because my brother's been a Rangers fan, and therefore I've been a Rangers fan. Right? That's how it works.
Misguided, but fair.
I grew up in New Jersey, New York, and we didn't want the Devils, so here we are.
At least it's not the Devils, so I appreciate that there's some class there. But it's I'm sorry, Andy is from New Jersey, so but he isn't really a hockey fan. It's pretty funny because like Carly's a little bit of a sports fan. Andy is not very much of a sports fan, but they do mod for me. So I do hang out with people that are less sportsy than myself.
Okay. Oh goodness, Misfits with the raid.
Wow.
Alrighty, let's get this night off. They started off. Oh God, it's beginning. Hello, Misfits, Special Sunshine. Welcome on in, guys. This is Robbie.
Hi.
Robbie's being interviewed tonight by me, the Rusty Panda, and we're doing Wiki Wednesday. And if you have any questions, let us know. But otherwise, we're going to go right into some of his likes. So the first thing we have up here is the Capitals, because that seemed like the most poignant thing to talk about.
Yes.
Oh, Robbie got a new haircut.
I did. It's been long for 9 years. It's very strange to have short hair again.
Oh, I think I saw pictures of that where you had. Yeah. Did you have a ponytail?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've had it down and long for a very long time. My children have actually never seen me with short hair, so I let my son decide. And because my parents hated the long hair, my wife loved the long hair. I love the long hair, so I was like, I'm just gonna let Zach decide. So he did. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, my husband Galvos, he has hair all the way down his butt.
oh yeah, I mean, it wasn't quite that long, but it was it was I like to call it like Dave Grohl length. That was my
Got it.
inspiration, for growing it out. So
All right.
in fact, actually, I have an emote of how it used to look, so then you can see it's with my daughter, and there's my emote for her. So that's how it
Aw.
used to look. So, and then Zach, the first one, is the one who got to decide to cut my hair. He wanted to see me with it. So it's been 5 years since he was born. But
Oh
yeah,
my
it was
goodness.
it was fun. So
I should be a kind guest and just say shout out first to Misfit for the raid. If those of you who like Disney Dreamlight Valley, for those of you who like Fortnite, for those of you who like what else has she been playing recently? What else have you been playing recently? Basically, the big two, um, going back and forth. But basically, amazing human being, 100% my sister, and give her a follow.
I just did. Cool.
Thanks, awesome. And then, secondly, shout out to our guest here, Robbie. I want to make sure that everyone has a link in order to go ahead and click to follow if you're not following already.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, okay, sorry. So I'm wearing a Rangers jersey. I can't. I don't know if you can
Oh,
tell.
nice. That's fair. I almost wore a Capitals one, but I figured there's already Capitals gear all around my room. So, figured I always wear sports stuff on my show that I thought I would wear something different, especially because we met in a music stream. So I figured
Right.
it was fitting.
I
So,
I literally had a toss up, and I was like, I will never have the chance to wear this.
yes, that's fair. That's fair. I wear jerseys very often on my show,
Oh, okay.
and so and I have to say, the Rangers are a rival of the Capitals, but my parents both grew up in New York. My dad grew up a Rangers fan before he was a Capitals fan. My dad has a weird sense of fandom. He roots for teams in all the cities he's ever lived in, but that doesn't make sense when you've lived in New York, Philly, and Washington because they're all rival cities.
They
But,
are.
so like I don't necessarily agree with that. It's I didn't send him the link for tonight's show, so he won't see this. But yeah, so I do question that sort of approach to fandom. I do root for multiple teams, but they usually are both in the same geographic area, or I rooted for Phillies when I lived in Philadelphia, but I root for the Nats now because I live here. So, yeah.
So here I am as a Royals Chiefs fan.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, yeah, these are Chiefs fan. They've been doing awesome. So
yeah, it's
that's a good.
been crazy here in Kansas City. They're trying to put a Royal Stadium in the middle of our city,
All
and the
right.
taxpayers are like, no.
Yeah.
Like they're like, support your teams. They could possibly leave if you want, and we're like, no, we don't care. We don't want that to go forward because we don't want to pay your taxes.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've actually had a bunch of like they were threatening to move the Capitals and the Wizards to Virginia, which I hated from the beginning, but I like promised I wouldn't really cover it much on my show because I was like I didn't believe it was going to happen because they tried to move at the time the Redskins to that location like 20 years ago before they moved to FedEx Field, and it fell through because Virginia does a bad job of trying to lure teams into their state because the other parts of Virginia that are not part of Northern Virginia were like, why are we going to subsidize this? And so, like, it's a very conservative state, and thus nothing gets done because it just becomes gridlock, which I knew was going to happen, even though the governor was like, I promise it'll go through this time. Shocker, it didn't. And so it all fell through. And so, on the bright side, I've always liked Capital One Arena, and I'm happy that my teams are staying in DC because it's right above a metro stop, and I live next to a metro here in Maryland, so I can just
There you
take it
go.
down.
Boop.
It's a lot better. Like,
Nice,
yeah.
nice, nice,
But
nice.
I have been to Madison Square Garden before. It's only one of two road arenas that I've ever been to. So
Yes.
it is a legendary place, and Unfortunately, the Caps lost the time I went there, but I did get to sit in the box seats, so I had a really
Wow.
nice experience. So yeah, it was a fun time. It was a fun matinee that I got to go with my wife, and it's actually my cousin's husband. It's his tickets, so he owned
Oh.
a company and had.
Wow. Box seats in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, he had for all sports. I'm like, it's pretty swanky. Yeah. But I'm happy that he invited me to a game. I was like, all right, let's do this. So
Yeah.
and it was a good game. So the only other place I've seen a road game for the Capitals is in Philadelphia when I was in college,
Okay.
in 2008. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I love Philadelphia, but obviously I'm not akin to their teams.
Yes.
S-
I feel that
uh
100%. Their fan base is it's harsh. It's a tough group to like.
oh
I'll tell
God.
you that I wore a Sean Taylor stuff the day after he died, and they still gave me shit for it. Like
Oh
they're not
wow.
even like they're pretty
Yeah.
low. I mean, in my totem pole of fandom, like I would root for a New York team over a Philly team anytime. So
And I mean, I lived in New Jersey, smack dab in the middle. So it took me an hour to get to New York. It took me an hour to get to Philadelphia. I was there both times, all the time. When I go to Jersey now, I fly Philadelphia instead of Newark because
yeah,
obvious
that's a
reasons.
better airport. Well, I mean that other. Oh, yeah. It's funny because I lived in Philly for 5 years to go to college, but so I love the city, and I love my university, but I didn't. And I adopted the Phillies when I was there, and they won the World Series the year after I left. I actually went back for the parade and was
Awesome.
a Phillies fan. I had a weird beginning of my Nats fandom. I had a rule: I'd go to a Phillies Nats game every single season, and whoever won that game, I would root for the rest of the year. I would go to the first game of the season between those two teams every year. And for the first 7 years, Philly won.
Oh my God.
And then I moved here and I started a Nats podcast, and the Nats did win, and then they went obviously on that legendary run in 2019. But it was just kind of a funny like running gag. I was like, well, you got to beat them. Oh, you didn't do it. Still a Phillies fan. Yeah. Um, there were some pretty bad years early in the Nats, history.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me what got you into sports in general. Did you play hockey when you were
I
younger
didn't.
or
I've never really. I mean, I guess I play tennis, which is a sport. I consider scuba diving to be a sport, which I do as well. And I do a little. I hadn't skied in 15 years, but I did just got back into it this year. So those are the only really like, sports that I do. I love swimming too, but I was always on a lot of teams, but never going to be in the. I was going to be a bench warmer. We'll put it that way. So I quickly learned how to do all the statistics for the teams and how to like design plays and help coaches and stuff like that. And so at a very young age, I believe it was in fifth grade, I started managing sports teams, and I did that all through high school as well. Managed basketball and soccer, and so I've seen it. I've run scoreboards. I've done all the stats, and so I became like a really into stats. And I got into sports because of my dad. He took me to a ton of different sporting events from when I was a baby. Even like there is early footage on a tape that we have, a VHS of me going, and I was on ESPN, and I was at. This is pretty funny. I was at a Lions game, the Columbia Lions, in New York City. My grandfather was the dean at the University of Columbia, and so we went to games there. And so I didn't know how bad they were or even care about obviously score at the time.
right?
But it's funny that ESPN panned me because I guess the game was probably like a blowout at that point, knowing that time in their history. And I've been a fan for a long time. I became a hockey fan in 1998. They had a huge run to the Stanley Cup. And ultimately, they got swept by the Red Wings. And my dad took me to
Mhm.
an early round game in that series, where I actually, it's an interesting story. This is my first game I ever went to. It was a playoff game. My dad got tickets right behind the bench, like right as you're walking. And so I got to high five all the players as they came and went. And ultimately, they lost that game. They would go on in the next game and win that series. And that was the first round. And Chris Simon, who was our enforcer at the time, legendary player who unfortunately just passed a couple weeks ago. And he was upset after the game, and I patted him on the back as he passed by, and he turned and snarled at me. And I was like, I was I've never been so frightened by somebody in my life, because I didn't know. I was just trying to console the poor guy. He was
Right.
so sad. And he walked off, and I know he didn't mean anything by it, but
Yeah.
like that was just his, like, he's a very intense person. And so that's like the first, like, but anyway, my dad ultimately took me to game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals that was in DC, and I got to watch Detroit hoist the Stanley Cup in our building. But that Detroit team was legendary, won 2, championships, swept 2 championships in a row. I think the only team to ever do that. And so, losing to them, we weren't even supposed to be there. We were like a 4 seed on the East, and we were an up and coming team at the time. So I was like, oh, we'll just, we'll learn so much from this. We'll be right back there. And so every year I'd watch them and be like, we're going to get there. And it took 20 years for them to get back to the Stanley Cup. So I went through a long time before they won it. So much heartache in
Yeah.
so many different ways. And got to go to a lot of really exciting games along the way. But yeah, it's been a really interesting run. But I'm happy that I started the podcast in 2016 to sort of document it, because at the time they were a very good team and they were going into the playoffs. And yeah, we cover them every year, including that magical 2018 run. And I still think my favorite podcast I ever did was afterwards. I had a call-in show, and like 10 different Capitals fans all got to call in and gush about their team and how this is one of the most meaningful. And it was the day before the parade, and everyone's very excited. And it's still like a magical, like, top 5 for me. And
Yeah. It sounds
so
like it. That's a good moment. That's a good moment in history. Um
for
okay,
sure.
so you've always been in the sports world.
Yeah.
Um how did you let's talk about your podcast. So how
Yeah.
did you get that going?
Yeah. So it's an interesting story. So we started it off as a call-in radio show. So there was a network called the True Radio Network, and they used a software called Blog Talk Radio. And Blog Talk Radio is a really cool piece of software that you can call into. It gives you a switchboard and a 1-800 number, and you use that 1-800 number, and people can call into it. So people could call in from all over the country, and it turns into a switchboard. And one person, you could have a producer be on the back end of it and field calls as they come in, and then bring them over to the live room, right? So
Wow.
it's like a real radio show, but done through the web. And once the episode is done, it made a recording, and then you could put that on a website. You can link to it. And so my co-host Carol at the time was invited onto it was a Redskins show at the time. I know that now the Commanders. I still try to refer to them as what they were when they are,
Right.
because I understand some people are PC. I'm like, never talk about it, but like
Right.
they were
They
that. So
were.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can see that I follow their whole entire history. But I was born during a Redskins game, actually, but we can get into that when we talk about the rivalry with the
Yeah.
Cowboys later. And but it was um I don't know. It was an interesting time. So he was on that show. They liked him. They said a Monday slot is opening up on our network. So they let different people run the show every day of the week. And so that's why it was like a network. And so that way we didn't all have to buy in. One person could pay for it, or you could split it. And, it was a little bit easier that way. And so they said, hey, would you like to do a show? He said, sure. And then I ran a lot of different Facebook groups for sports. And one, I've made a bunch of them. I've run them. I've been a part of. I'm probably a moderator of like 25 different Facebook groups still to this day. But Beltway Sports is when I started as a way to try to bring the Baltimore and Washington D.C. communities together, because there's always this rivalry that's tried to pit these cities against each other. But I like both,
Mhm.
and I know a lot of other people do too. So I created that Facebook group, and he shared a post, and he had been sharing a lot of his writings. He was a blogger, and shared a lot of his writings with me and in that group over the years. So we sort of created a Facebook friendship that way. And then he posted, "Hey, I have this opportunity. Does anyone want to come on and host with me and be a part of this, or help produce it, or just or have any ideas?" And I said, "Hey, sure. I've always wanted to be a producer. Why don't I produce you? You be the host. I will be your switchboard operator. I love that stuff. I might come on and do like a stat of the day or a couple of segments here and there as well. But you can roll with it." And so he said, "That sounds great." So we brought it to the idea to the uh, at the time, his name was Jason. Unfortunately, he's since passed. But he his nickname was called Black GOP, and so Black GOP we took it to him, and he was like, "Yeah, it's a great idea, but we're gonna have our Wednesday night host be your producer, and we want you two to run it together, and we want to see if you have chemistry and can do it." And I said, "Sure, I've never done it before, but why not?" So after a couple of drinks before each show, I got up the courage to be able to talk to him and do stats and all the things I love. And we grew a whole community. People would call in, and then pretty early on, I decided there's so many people who are still afraid to call in. Like the whole point of this show was DC radio. People have like a 1 minute call, so they call in. They give you a 1 minute question and then they hang up on you and then they talk about whatever you wanted to talk about, right? And so I had done that many, many times on radio. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. Like fans should be able to speak on their teams in a much longer context, right?
Right.
So this was going to be a forum for that. People could join in. We could make roundtables. We could have two at a time, three at a time, whatever we want to do. We can mix and match it, different sports, different groups of people, whatever. And so I love that. And so, but I still knew that there were people in these Facebook groups who loved the concept, would listen to us either live or afterwards, but were still too timid to call in, or just had a question but didn't want to call in. And so, what's great about Twitch, now we have a chat, right? You can ask us questions. And so at the time, Facebook Live was just becoming a thing. And so I was like, why don't I just put my phone out here? I'll go live on Facebook Live from our show page. I very early on made a page, for the page, and I will go live either from my personal account, or was what we started doing. Sometimes we would do it from the page's account, and then we could share it to the page or whatever, and people could submit questions and chat with us live in real time. And so they get questions in. Plus, the live people calling in can ask questions and be a part of the conversation too. And then so we did that for a couple of years, both the audio and the video. Then COVID hit, and this was my studio. I used to have a lot of people come in here and do it live. We would literally pass a old phone, a landline phone, back and forth between us, while I had the iPhone that I would just swivel back and forth between us, right? Very like rudimentary. But then COVID happened, pandemic happened, everyone had to go remote, and so I started to think, hey, we're using Zoom for so much, what happens if I just use Zoom to do the podcast, and I do it through OBS? And um, so I had used OBS a little bit. I had come to Twitch a couple of years earlier or like a year earlier to try it, but there wasn't a whole huge sports community over here at the time. And so I was like, all right, I will. And I was using a multi-stream because I wasn't even an affiliate at the time, so you're allowed to
Yeah.
at the time do that. And so I was like, I'll put a pause on that. And then eventually I was like, oh, I'll come back to it. Now we can have this cool thing. It can look a little bit like ESPN. We can have Zoom up on the thing. We can have like four squares, whatever, and people could call in. And we no longer need to use the software for the call-ins anymore. And so we kind of moved to doing it that way, and that's kind of how the Twitch show grew out of that. And then I still live broadcast using Zoom. There's a Zoom extension that will just send it right to Facebook. So I still go Facebook Live for the community over there, but there's none of the bells and whistles and graphics and all the stuff that we put on Twitch. It's just a very, just looks like Zoom. So
So you do two shows or you're multicasting?
well, so I always thought I was getting around it because I don't consider it multicasting, because I consider it a different stream, because the Facebook one is a different chat and a different look completely to the thing.
Yeah.
I am casting on both of them simultaneously. And what I actually do is I take that Facebook feed and I rip the video off of it when I'm done. And then I extract the audio and then I upload that to, the audio platforms. And so that way, I kind of do a show inside of a show inside of a show, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. So like,
yeah.
Twitch is the big show. It's got the extra beginning and the end. Facebook's in the middle, and then I chop that down to what the audio podcast is going to
Wow.
be. And
That's crazy.
that way I only have to stream once a week, but then I can split that up and have content. I take the Twitch feed and I cut it into 3, so that way by sport people can find it as a separate video when I upload it to YouTube.
Another raid.
Oh, nice, Mike. It's so nice to see you, Mike.
Oh my goodness. Iram. And Carly, thank you so much for the lurk. I appreciate it.
Davey asked a good question. Any thought to simulcasting on TikTok? I'm not a TikToker. I'm trying to get into it, but I'm in so many social medias. I don't know if I need to be in another one. I have thought about multi-streaming, also to Kick and other things too, but I'm already watching 2 chats between Facebook and this, and having a conversation and interviewing 3 people, and it's just a lot already. I can't imagine having to now do another one. I was like,
Yeah.
and the thought of building a whole nother community is daunting as well. So, hey, welcome, Big Ducky. So it's good to yeah, YouTube has a lot of sports stuff on it. Yeah, I was thinking I used to stream on YouTube. I don't particularly like the comments that you get on YouTube from people. I think that it's a very cruel platform. And so that's why I just upload them later, and so people want to watch it by topic they can. But I agree. You turn them off from my show. That's fair. That you could do that. I could. I just think that I don't know if anyone wants to watch a 3-hour sports show on YouTube, so that's why I think it's easier if they just want to watch a 1-hour hockey show, or a 1-hour, like yesterday or on Monday I did like a WrestleMania special, a 1 hour of that, and then so people can choose their topic and it'd be more. But I don't know. The meta on YouTube changes all the time. They actually are telling you don't do what I do. Like 2 out of my 3 videos are going to get no views, which is what actually happens.
Right.
They tell you now to do 1 really good piece of content a week now, which is really hard for me as somebody who likes to make 5 to 6 videos a week. So,
Right. Right.
um, but anyway, I don't do it for the meta. I do it so I can have the memories. So it's not,
Yeah, and it's something you love. So,
yeah,
I mean, that's incredible. That's awesome that you can do that. Um so you got it. It's a great story of how you got into podcasting. It's a great story about how you got into sports. But let's kind of like remove ourselves from sports for a minute.
yeah,
And let's talk about some of the other things that's on your list.
yeah.
So, you said that you believe that scuba is a sport, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying you. I don't. I'm just saying you believe that scuba is a sport.
Yes.
So tell me about it. Tell me about how you got
Yeah.
into scuba
Uh,
and
Oh my god, I love scuba diving. So on my channel, I'm gonna put just a quick link in chat, because I
it
think.
won't work. You have to send it to my Discord.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Here, I'll send it to your Discord. But it's because it has all 49 of my scuba movies on it, so I think
Mhm.
it's an easier. I've always wanted to be a filmmaker. I studied film in college, and so this is sort of my passion project of not being able to be a full-time filmmaker because I have a day job. But I also love, we're talking about the sport of scuba diving, and so I started that at a very young age. So my parents are fanatical scuba divers. My dad has been certified since the 70s. He got certified at a summer camp down in the Florida Keys. And he was a fanatical since he was a teenager. And my mom, when I was a kid, uh, joined him. She was a snorkeler and then decided to become a scuba diver too. So at about the age of 10, or maybe 8, I'm snorkeling above them diving, right? So they're down below and I'm, just snorkeling along the surface or whatever. And I see a giant manta ray below. And I'm like, this thing's huge. It's like, I exaggerate a lot of times, but I still think it's like 20 feet large. I don't know if it actually was. Manas do get to be that size. And I'm like, I thought it was a submarine at first. I'm like, what the hell is that coming at them? And it was
Yeah.
a giant manta ray. And I was in awe. And I was like, I got to get down there. I can't be up here. Like, I need to be with that thing. Right.
Yeah.
So the earliest age I could get certified, I did. I guess now you can get certified at 10. I got certified at 13, but this is also a while ago. I'm
Right.
39. So yeah, so I actually ended up going to the same camp that my dad is one of the founding campers of. And so I get certified before I do that down in the British Virgin Islands. I was very fortunate. As a kid, my parents would take me there every Christmas, and we would go diving. And
Yeah, I was just there 2 years ago
oh,
as a
nice.
family vacation. Absolutely beautiful. We stayed in by we're not by Tortola. We were by Kings Rock.
Hmm. I think I know exactly what you're talking about. So we were on. So this is the British side, and so we were in. It's called Virgin Gorda. It's and it
That's I
was
think what we were on.
yeah, yeah. They have a bunch of resorts over there, and so unfortunately, the resort that we went to got hit by a hurricane later on, and
Mm,
so it no longer is a functional one. But we've pivoted, and now we go to Grand Cayman, which is actually what a lot of the videos are about on that dive channel. And so my dad likes taking underwater pictures. I also like photography and videography, as I was mentioning. And so the idea was I would take the I, I wanted to start shooting video underwater and start documenting how it would change. And so a decade ago, I started doing that. But the summer camp taught me everything. That was where really the foundation of my love of science. And I thought marine biology and scuba diving. And it was a very cool experience. And I ultimately got my master diver certification through them. And I'm nitrox certified. And I got partially through the rescue diver certification. So I've done it for quite some time now, and it's funny
that's great.
when my wife and I got married, my parents said, "You're now a part of the family, but you have to do one more thing. You have to try to scuba dive. You don't have to love it. You don't have to continue to do it, but you have to try it." And my wife is a natural. She was a distance swimmer, so she's a very good swimmer.
Hmm.
And so yeah, so we scuba dive together. We've gotten her parents into it now. So now the six of us go on adventures underwater. And so my movies are actually documenting our adventures all together, all set to Twitch music, all of these different Twitch musicians. So the latest project, I think I had 8 countries. Is that right? 17 tracks across 8 countries and 3 continents
Wow.
included around the world. So people submitted tracks, and yeah, it was really a cool experience. Primordial Sounds, who's in chat, he's had an original which I've loved for a long time, and so for the month leading up to us going, he actually recorded the process of him making it, sometimes on stream, sometimes off stream, and he released it on Christmas, and then I literally released it as a music video for that on the same day or the day before or something like that. So it was it was a really cool collaborative process with so many different musicians, and a lot of them were giving me instrumental tracks and rare tracks and other versions, and I also with their permission use artificial intelligence to extract elements of their music and then layer that in with the scuba stuff to create soundscapes to link with it. And so ultimately it made a 2 hour movie, and it's
Wow.
11 parts, but the whole movie together is 2 hours long. So yeah, it was a really cool adventure and being a collaborative and a 3 month process for me to film and make it and edit it. And so
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's such a unique world down there. It's first of all, it is a sport in the sense that you're swimming the whole time, but people, you almost forget that you're doing, because you're so like in awe. But like when you sit back and think about it, like you're going across a pretty large amount of distance, up and down and around things. And but it's like neutral buoyancy and that sense of weightlessness is the closest you'll ever get on this planet to flying,
Right.
and it's the most incredible experience. And watching, and once you've been able to achieve neutral buoyancy, and like I do this video stuff, I've been able to, like, with breath control, be able to zoom in and zoom out of like where I am to something. And it's just cool play with these fish and trying to catch up to them and interacting with them, and not interacting with them, and
Right. Right.
dropping it in places and letting it capture moments. And so it's just this cool interplay with this whole world that so much of the population will never get to see, right? And so yeah, I don't want to take it for granted, and these moments fly by so fast. That hour dive goes by and it's gone, right?
Right.
And this, I shot 40 minutes out of every hour of every dive, and so I ultimately collected a ton of footage, 5 hours worth, and then cut it down. to the best 2 hours worth. But
Wow.
it's just really kind of a cool way to share these experiences and the music, and it becomes the soundtrack. I actually make playlists on my Apple Music to what it is, and so it's kind of cool to have a soundtrack to my life that I can then ultimately use. I've used Carly's ones in vlogs and travel vlogs, and it was same with Andy, and it's just been a cool way to interact with a lot of these musicians that I mod for, and
Yeah.
people that I have relationships with, and try to bring their music to a different community, and as well as then I'm not like slowing down Disney tunes and trying
Yeah,
to
yeah.
on the YouTube blocks. So it's
Under the sea for the
exactly
15th
I've
time, like
I've done that. So you go back to my older stuff, it's kind of cringy, but like that's what I did before I was on Twitch and knew people.
right, right. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, I mean, that's really cool. And British Virgin Islands is a beautiful place to go ahead and do that. I believe we were on Virgin Gorda. It wasn't a resort. It was uh, like a house, like a
Hmm.
villa, so to
Oh yeah,
speak.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was really nice. And we had our own private little cove that nobody can go into, and so we snorkeled like crazy, and then we snorkeled all the way around to like where the cruise ships dock,
Oh, nice.
and we didn't realize how far we had swam. But when we went ahead and did the math, like when you do Google Maps and then you'd use the thing to see how much you went, I went about 7 football fields.
That's ridiculous. What's cool is like I wish I could take my Apple Watch diving, right? Because it connects to GPS, so when I'm swimming and doing snorkeling, it can track. And but we have dive computers, which are totally different, but it's not using like GPS. And also, I don't. It wouldn't be able to get a signal, down 80 feet. But it's kind of cool. I sometimes do that for my snorkel trips on my watch, and then actually it pulls up a map on your phone of where you like
Oh,
swam
cool.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't think it was actually 7 football fields because at the time I was like, "That's 7 football fields." What I truly think it was like 3 or 4, and
I
that's
believe it
that's
though.
the
You can swim a
most.
long time that people don't realize. Like,
Out around, and then I remember at one point I was snorkeling and the rocks were like here, and my body was like here, and I had to like suck it in so that way I didn't touch the rocks and like potentially hurt myself. And I was like, I'm going around next time instead of through because
right.
that was horrible.
Yeah. It's difficult. I actually, in some ways, prefer diving to snorkeling because well, it depends on the top of the water. If it's like super calm and you're seeing beautiful things and it's
Mhm.
really shallow and you have unlimited time, sure. But like, unless you're having those kind of conditions, like it's so nice just to be able to be submerge yourself, be under, have the hour, they come up to the boat, have a break for an hour, they drive you to the next place, and you drop down and go again, because you don't have to deal with like surface currents and waves and breath control, and it becomes this whole like sensory like different
Yeah.
world and stuff like that, which is why I tend to record the audio of my breathing,
Oh.
and I actually play that along with the bubbles and other sounds you're hearing, like beeps and things like that, and weave that into the music as well. So that way people can have that experience. Because the ultimate goal, I haven't done it yet, but is to take that 4K movie, because I just got the new GoPro before this last movie, the 12, so I could do it in 4K and as the motion stabilization, which was amazing. And that way, eventually, I go grab my GoPro, go to my channel, click the playlist, and be submerged underwater, and can feel like you're like in it. But yeah, I love the audio down there and love the sea life. It's just an incredible experience. I have this one video I did where I was with manta rays at night dive, and we put flashlights down. It was in Hawaii, and we call it a campfire. And what you do is it's basically you put a bunch of flashlights in the center, and it attracts photoplankton. And in Hawaii, these manta rays, which are each individually, they know the name of each one, because I didn't know this, but manta rays have their own different bottom. Each one of them, it's like a thumbprint,
Oh.
and so like they can be identified and numbered and named differently. And so they came through and they swooped through, and it's so incredible. It was some of the earliest shots I did, because this was a trip I did before we had Zach, so it's like 6 or 7 years ago now. But it was so incredible watching them feed and come through, these graceful creatures, because rays are like my favorite animals, and I just, to be able to witness that was at night was incredible. That, and I did a cool snorkel with whale sharks. That was they are so fast.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep up with them to film them, so I gave the camera to my wife, and she is a much faster swimmer than I am. And because she used to do like big distance swimming, like just can gun it with them, and so I got some amazing shots, and that was cool. The Mexico, because we got to see cenotes. You know what a cenote is?
I do not. Let's Google it. I mean, let's Wikipedia it.
Yeah.
Cenote. What do
So
we?
this is a really cool thing. It's where it's in the Yucatan. It's it's freshwater snorkel spots kind of thing.
Okay.
Um, so
Do you know how to spell it?
yeah, it's cenote. So
Oh,
Cenote.
okay. That makes a lot more sense. Here we are.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes. So we had this goal in 2020 to go and um, dive some of these, because they're like caves, but what's nice about them is they have multiple entrances and exits, so it's a little
Yeah.
safer than cave diving, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's also fresh water, so it's super crystal clear. But they have these things called haloclines, and a halocline is when salt water and fresh water mix, and it
Mm-hmm.
creates this like blurry effect. And so there's these different levels that you're going through, and it creates these cool optical effects. And sometimes other gases can come into them, and so there's incredible footage on YouTube of people like submerging themselves and coming out of these abyss and stuff like that in dives. And so it was really fun to kind of document some of it, and these the the forms of the light coming through that you can see here,
Right.
as it peers through, and all of the lime rock and how it bounces off them, and these cool formations that exist there. And a lot of people snorkel in these spots, and in fact, back in a long, long time ago, this is where the Mayans got their fresh water.
Okay.
It was an important water source, for a lot of people for a long time. And so yeah, it was really cool. So we were trying to go to dive those, as well as be with whale sharks. And then unfortunately in 2020 everything shut down. And so a couple of years later, um, they let us keep our deposit and said come within the next 5 years. And so instead of it being a romantic trip for two between me and Liz, and the grandparents watched Zach, we at that point had Zara, and so we invited Liz's parents to come with us. So they came with us. They watched the kids during the day while we go diving, and they get to go play with them, and all the fun, all you can eat,
Right.
place that
Right.
we're staying. So it was an amazing week, and so I'm happy that we still got to do it. It's a little different than the original plan, but uh,
Right.
it was. There's so many cool things underwater. Just really incredible things. But that was just a really unique experience. Yeah.
Yeah. I jumped into something about half. I can't see my mouse. About halfway of this. So imagine the water is like here. I
Mm,
can show on my. Oh no, I can't. I'm green screened out. Uh, Consider half of this. Chunk it in half,
yeah.
and the water is there. That's what I jumped into in
Yeah.
Aruba.
Oh, nice.
And that was great because that was on the volcanic side of the island, so it was like
Oh, that's
rocky and
cool.
stuff. And yeah, that was terrifying. You had to like go down this rickety ladder to come like all the way around to come into this pool to then jump. You better not hit the rocks around you. Go plunging, swim around a little bit in this fresh water, fresh. So I guess what you're saying, this kind of mix, and then come back out again and have to walk your ass back up that rickety ladder to get,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, this was fun, but holy shit, am I tired? Like,
Right. Well, I'll have to say it is exhausting, because you have to grab all of your scuba equipment and walk it down to these places, and
yeah,
there often is lots of stairs and stuff like that. I have a bad back, so luckily the people that we were with, you know I'll call them a tour guide for lack of a better term at this point, but and they're dive masters, but in that sense they walk you through the forest to get you to the dive site as well.
right,
What's really cool about these cenotes is a lot of them have divers that are photographers and videographers at each one, and they dive all during the day. And what they do is after you're done, you can go up and they'll show you the video. And if you like it, you can buy a memory, stick with all the video on it. So it's kind of, and their footage was much better than mine because at the time I had an old GoPro and I hadn't upgraded to this new one. So I was like, heck yeah, I want to buy all of your footage, so like,
Yeah.
'cause that'll make my movie that much better. Like, so I combined their footage with mine. And
That's
uh
incredible. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean it's kind of like a roller coaster, right? They're like if you like your image, you can go ahead and buy it at
yeah,
the end.
exactly. But yeah, no, what a cool. But also, it's like it's hard to get shots of me, and also they have big lights on there, so they get such views of this lime rock that I can't. I shoot my flashlight and I follow, the shot, and so I have a beam of light, but it's very different to have like two big lights and
Yeah.
light up the whole thing. And their footage was HD, like 4K footage compared to my 1080 whatever. So.
um all right, so you said that you'd like to do swimming as well, right? So like
Well,
some
I mean, I guess though, just as a function of diving, I guess I don't like swim a ton like separate from that. I mean, I love just being in the water, beaches and all that sort of stuff. But like, you have to be a good swimmer to be a diver, I guess is my point. So I don't mind swimming if there's something to see. I guess I just don't really like doing it in a pool all that much, but I do, sometimes we do belong to an outdoor pool. My favorite thing to do in a pool is to do breath holds and
yeah.
like do a whole breath and see if I can go laps, in a breath hold, which I tell you don't do that, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I've been a diver for 20 years, so I have a little bit more practice.
Right.
And so yeah, I was happy the other day. I was down in Texas and I hadn't done it in like 2 months, and I just on one breath went the whole length of the thing. And so I was, yeah,
It's the
it's kind of
dream,
fun to
right?
do. Yeah,
To get
so
from one end to another without taking a
yeah,
breath. That's the dream.
yeah. So it was kind of fun. I like to push it a little bit, doing things like that.
Right. Um, cool. And I learned what a cenote is because I did not know.
Yeah, they're really cool. Afterwards, I did send in Discord to your directly to you that link, but on that one you'll see the cenote video. It's gonna be pretty buried because it's gonna be behind two documentary films at the top, but that footage is on there too. So
Awesome.
it's really beautiful. I use music from Hattie Plays Music, who is one of my favorite people on Twitch. Just an incredible musician, and I've been a fan of his ever since Mike Shinoda rated him. And I'm it's probably one of the founder badges I'm proudest of. Just because like it's cool to have a founder badge on a partner and just to believe in him. And he just creates some really amazing music, and he's just such a great spirit. He literally. My son's a huge fan of his, like, so he listens to all of his music, and he was able to from Lebanon do a Zoom call with him for his birthday, for his fifth birthday, which was the sweetest thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So I was, yeah, there it is. Yeah, perfect. So the yeah, that scuba link will have literally all 49 videos. In fact, I am working behind the scenes on making one more video. I really want to do like a trailer for this movie that I did, and so I am thinking about using a Hattie cover of a Linkin Park song that he did called "My December,"
Hmm.
which could be funny because it was my December. So I thought that would be kind of a funny idea. I'm gonna let my dog out for 1 second.
Okay.
All right, I'm back.
Okay. um. Yeah. I actually know my December. That was off the later albums, right?
Actually, it was a B-side album. So I guess it did come out as a track in some of the later ones. But My December was actually, I believe, on the EP for the Hybrid Theory, the shirt that I'm actually wearing right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
let
I
me
believe.
see this let's see this discography.
There you go.
All right, so Hybrid Theory, and then we'll look at
Yeah.
my December. There we go.
Yep, there it is. Bonus tracks on Japan, a Japanese one, but I think that there was also released as like on the
iTunes
like,
Deluxe Edition.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it.
Wow.
I think I originally got it on LimeWire from Japan when it happened a long time ago, but I've
We don't
since bought it in
we
many different
we
ways.
don't talk about LimeWire. We don't talk about We don't
It's
talk about Kazaa. I'm sorry,
right,
we don't.
right, right. It was a time. So yeah, no, that song always hit super hard for me. It was one of my favorite songs. And, I was a Linkin Park super fan from the very beginning. I actually got to go to the Hybrid Theory tour, which is kind of nuts. That
Wow.
and for a long time I went to a show on every one of their tours, and unfortunately, one of the last shows I had tickets to, I misplaced the tickets. We'd gotten them for free. We won them, and I didn't go. I was like, oh, I'll get them the next time. And I did get tickets the next time. And unfortunately, Chester passed 10 days before my show.
Oh no.
Yeah, so that was pretty heartbreaking. For a whole host of reasons. So I
Yeah.
actually, it was up in Pennsylvania in Hershey Park, and that's where it was going to be. They were doing a special concert. It was called Blinkin Park, where they were going to play with Blink 182, but it was not that they were just going to have like co-headline it. They were actually going to play
Play
as a
with.
combined band.
Wow.
And like I love Blink 182 and I love Linkin Park. I actually went to one of Blink 182's first shows a long time ago in '99. I went to a festival where they were the opener, which is crazy.
Crazy,
Um,
yeah.
but um, but yeah, so we were supposed to see that. It didn't happen, and then ultimately we there were so many fans in mourning, and so many people had bought tickets to have hotels up there, and they were non-refundable or and
Yeah.
stuff. So we ended up going up there, and I ended up running this vigil for Chester up there, which is weird because I live in DC, but I was running one up in Pennsylvania.
Right.
But Hershey's not that far,
Yeah.
from that. And so ultimately, I gained all these amazing friends of Linkin Park fans. I'm still friends with to this day. Some of them actually are streamers even on Twitch. But
Wow.
the yeah, it was rough because I was like, man, I'm sad that I missed that last show. It was tough. It was at a really hard to get to venue in the middle of a Wednesday, not great weather, and I was at lawn seats for free that I got. I won it on DC 101, which is the radio station.
Right.
So it wasn't like I had paid the money, and so but at the time I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll just get them, and it was 30 Seconds to Mars that was the opener. And I
Oh
was
my
like, "Ugh."
god.
Yeah, so. Uh, Anyway, so such is life. I did get to see them 5 times. I cannot complain too much. So
Right.
I was very fortunate to got to do that. And what was really cool is a lot of their live shows. They used to give you a CD, a blank CD, back when you burned CDs,
Yeah.
and a code that you could download that show's audio onto and make your own live album. All right, I'm gonna let Lily back in. But yeah, let's see if she'll join us on stream. Hold on. Look up.
Okay.
Um. So this is really,
Oh my goodness. Hello.
yes.
Oh my goodness. Oh, how happy.
Yeah, she's like, you're giving me attention.
Big
Like,
dog, big dog.
yeah, she's a boxer. She's a very big dog.
Yeah.
I always said I never wanted a big dog or a puppy, and so for our 7-year wedding anniversary, I got a boxer puppy. So so there you go.
Here
What
we
you do for
are.
love, So good girl. So, I'll see if I can swivel it around a little bit, and then you can kind of see her in there. But yeah, it was lifelong love of Linkin Park. In fact, they're releasing well, not a new album, but a best of, if you want. And it's cool that they had some songs that they didn't even realize that they had, and so they're releasing Friendly Fire. I don't know if you've heard their newest track, but
No.
incredible track, and don't know why they didn't release it other than they must have so many songs in their vault, because I think that they recorded 20 to 50 songs like that they fully produced and recorded probably 200 for every one of their sessions.
Mhm.
Like they're just so prolific, and they cut it down to like 12 songs for an album.
Right.
So like every 20-year anniversary of whatever album, there's going to be like a whole extra album of music. So
Wow.
um, so I get that why they don't really feel like they need to just tour. They've done the touring thing for so long. Like just
Right.
release music and videos. Every once in a while they've got so much backlog footage and things that they could do. I miss it because going to those live shows were amazing, but I totally also understand it. And hopefully Mike Shinoda will tour again with his solo show. I missed it when it came to town. I was so bummed. I had to work that night. It
Mm,
was, but yeah, they were definitely the most influential band for me. Growing up, and I was a big REM fan before Linkin Park came out. That was sort of like my first love of music.
right.
But I feel like in some ways, I know their music is very different, but it's sort of that alternative rock and like where they took it. And I guess like later Linkin Park actually isn't so different from REM when you think about it. Obviously, where Linkin Park started is vastly different, but
Right.
um, yeah, yeah, that was obviously a rough one. Losing him, and it sucks 'cause I actually got to see Chester play with Chris Cornell at a concert where they performed together, and
Wow.
so I
That's
got to see Chester's side project, Dead by Daylight, and yeah, so it was crazy. The bond that they had was incredible. They had him come. So in Project Revolution 2008 in the summer, they had all these bands, all their favorite bands, just go on tour with them, and they made their own festival.
oh,
And
cool.
yeah, so I wonder, does Project Revolution, does that have a? They probably has
Let's
a page
see.
on there.
Boop.
Yeah, there it is. So I was in the 2008 one, which I guess would be further down. But yeah, so it started in 2002 with one of their first albums, and each one was a bit different in what they were doing. So that's yeah. So I guess you have to go down a little bit further because I was the Europe one who did the Europe first, and then later
Germany,
it was
Germany.
kind of crazy. Actually, that's an interesting story. In 2008, I was supposed to see them in Europe. I was studying abroad in Florence, and a hurricane hit the arena right before they went on stage. Got canceled. I'm telling you, I've missed 5 Linkin Park shows that I've paid for. I have like had terrible luck
Oh
in
my
theory. But,
god,
like,
yeah.
yeah, but that one was insane. That was going to be a really great show because it was going to be like Smashing Pumpkins and Aerosmith, and it was anyway. But yeah, so when they came to the U.S. one, that was it. So it was Chris Cornell, Soundgarden, The Bravery. It's actually from Baltimore, and Busta Rhymes, but he did leave the tour mid tour. And yeah, so and then that the Revolution stage had some amazing bands as well.
Yeah, Treyu, Hawthorne Heights, Armor for Sleep. My friend just saw Armor for Sleep like last week.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
really great.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
liked them. So yeah, so the yeah, so that was a great show. And so he actually came out for Hunger Strike, Chester did, and sang it with Chris Cornell on his set. And then Chris came back out and did, I think it was Crawling with them.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
cool because I have all these live albums from all those shows. I still like, I made graphics and album art for it, and made it on my iTunes, and yeah, so through iTunes Match I still have like all of those old
That's
concerts I go back
great.
and listen to sometimes. So
I wanted to see this. During Project Revolution, Busta Rhymes is announced to have left the tour only 11 days due to complicated business matters, amidst
yeah,
rumors that he had been removed from the lineup in an alleged backstage confrontation with Linkin Park's Mike Shinoda. Shinoda later posted on his blog that he and the rest of his band were disappointed to see Rhymes leave, implying the rumor was false. Busta actually left the tour due to an argument with his now former label Interscope Records. Since he left the label, he no longer had support to be on the tour.
yeah. So he left the record company, and they were like, "Well, you don't get to be on the tour anymore." So yeah.
Wow.
I also got to go to the 2007 show, which was the year before, which was also really good. That one, who My Chemical Romance
Oh wow,
opened
yeah, I
for
see
them.
that. Taking
Yeah,
Back Sunday
yeah, and him was
with
amazing.
him.
Julian K. And what's crazy about Julian K
Yeah.
is that's the band that became Dead by Sunrise. So they took Julian K, add Chester as the frontman instead of the normal frontman for Julian K,
Right.
and that becomes Dead by Sunrise. And so yeah, so it was kind of cool to see the kind of the formation and the friendship side of it, and then later see them in band. But Mindless Self Indulgence, Styles of Beyond was on the Revolution stage, which was great because Fort Minor is actually Styles of Beyond with Mike Shinoda, right? So
Wow.
you got to see the creation of the two side projects in other stages at this tour, which was pretty awesome. Also, My Chemical Romance, like
Yeah.
I wasn't a huge fan before, but like that day they won me over
They
150%.
can
Like,
play a freaking show.
yeah, their fans knew. I mean, obviously, most fans know every word, but they were singing at the top of their lungs, almost like chanting it. And like the whole place was so much louder than even when Linkin Park came back later. Like I was just like, I still have goosebumps. Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, holy shit, what have I been missing out on? Like clearly, like I was incorrect. And so they were amazing. And then I later actually saw them open for Blink 182
Hmm.
in 2011 in Hershey. But yeah, it was. Yeah, they are really incredible as well. So,
Yeah, and it's funny because two things. One, Taking Back Sunday, I've seen like three times. Usually
yeah,
with Coheed and Cambria.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was a great tour. But then I saw them in Philadelphia, of all places, and they had just come out with their newest album, which was, like I said, this was like pre-COVID, but not by much. And then, secondly, I don't know how indie you are, like as far as like music is concerned. Like, do you know who Death Cab for Cutie is?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so Death Cab for Cutie has a side project called Postal Service.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know Bubbles. Yeah,
So they are the same, but they are different, but they are the same. Well, Death Cab for Cutie is going on tour with the Postal Service.
right. Yeah. So that's a smart idea. Yeah, and then it's funny because isn't the I feel like was it Tool or somebody else was doing the same thing where they are in multiple bands and they're gonna have them on tour.
Right.
Uh, I'm just waiting for them to do the Blur Gorillas tour because that's the one I
Oh,
would spend whatever money to get front row possible because
yeah.
because Damien's amazing, and if I could see both bands, that would be incredible. It was funny because my son, who's 5, has now gone to 3 shows, and his first show was AJR, and his second show was Gorillas, and I was like, I don't know if you know how lucky you are. Like so many people, like Gorillas tour so irregularly, like once every 5 years, like.
Yep.
And I'm like, you're getting to see them, and not only that, but all the original artists that they performed with all came back for that tour. So the
Oh,
original one from Clint Eastwood, the De La Soul for Feel Good Inc. before he passed, just a month before he passed, and
right.
so like. I'm like, so that'll never be, and then they even had the guy who did the remix uh, for Clint Eastwood on there too, and like, anyway, they had like every single person from all the different eras. They didn't have Snoop Dogg, but like they had almost everybody.
Right, right.
And they just kept on pulling people out. I was like, this is nuts. So, yeah, on my YouTube channel, I have a whole section of concert footage that I do. So, yeah, that one was an incredible show. Like, Grills.
What was your first concert?
Yeah. So, I don't know. Do you know what the website setlist.fm is?
No.
So setlist.fm is like one of the coolest websites in the world. It's a Wikipedia, which we're doing Wiki Wednesday, for set lists, where people can make an aggregate of different set lists, and anybody can build them and anyone can design them. And so I've decided, since I go to so many concerts and I've been fortunate to grow up in the DC area where like tons of bands come through here, I started doing this in 2009. So going back, because a lot of them were people will like make them and do them, and have I've put 200 set lists into this thing already. And I know that
Wow.
there's, my dad was pointing out the other day of concerts he's been to with me as a kid that are missing still from it, that I don't know how I'm gonna like. I'd have to figure out the date, and because you can put it in yourself or have someone else do it, but
Right.
you have to figure out the date and when those things were and all that sort of stuff. So I can actually tell you because I have it on there. The very first show that I ever saw was Jimmy Buffett
Oh,
in the same
wow.
exact venue that my son saw AJR and Gorillas later. So it was kind of cool.
That's precious.
So, and about the same age too. We're just before we each hit 4. So this was in July 9th, 1988. Uh, so Jimmy Buffett played at Merriweather, and even on this set it has his set list on it, like what he played that day, which is why I think I kind of fan out over it. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's cool because then you have all your statistics too. It aggregates all of it. It shows you what's your most seen song, here, average playlists and length and everything. Like as a stats nerd, like I just kind of love that shit. So
Yeah. My first concert, I said it yesterday. My first concert was Rush, and I was 5.
That's amazing. This is the first concert that I can claim, but like I did go see the Tom Tom Club at a very young age. You know, it's just a spinoff of the Talking Heads, and I believe that my parents went to either Talking Heads concert, I think, when I was in utero, which is an interesting tradition because then we ultimately took Zach in utero to see who was it? Oh, I can look it up. But hold on, we can see by year. But yeah, so like we saw Portugal the Man. That's what it was.
Oh,
So we
that's
saw
great.
Portugal the Man while he was in utero, and then Zara has seen the coolest bands while in utero of anybody. She went to the Hella Mega Awesome tour.
Okay.
Uh, so she got to see Green Day with Weezer, which is pretty awesome.
Wow. Yeah.
And then also then later that summer when Liz was about, I think it was like 2 weeks before she like gave birth, we saw Alanis Morissette, which is pretty incredible with Garbage. So yeah, I was like, yeah, it's gonna be hard to top that for sure. We have
Yeah.
a weird history with Green Day. I've gotten to see them a couple of times when I was really young. Well, not really young, but back when I guess I was in college for the American Idiot tour, and then 21. Was it 21st Century? Anyway, and then later on Liz's birthday, they came and played Verizon Center, Capital One Arena, where the Caps play on her birthday. So
Oh,
I got to see her the
wow.
first time, and then Zara in utero, and then this year they're playing on Zach's 6th birthday on the day, and so we're gonna take him to his first Green Day concert.
That's so awesome. I love your like history of like the bands and your concerts. Um yeah, this year I have Death Cab for Cutie / Postal Service. I have Say Anything, and
Oh,
then
cool.
I have Modest Mouse the Pixies.
Oh, Modest Mouse, I love. I've never seen them. Yeah, wow. I don't think I've seen any of those bands, so that's pretty cool.
And then we just missed out on the Mountain Goats.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, so we just saw AJR at the beginning of their
right,
tour in
that's what I was going
Baltimore.
to type in.
They're gonna play again at the end of their tour in DC, and then and so that was incredible. Zach got to meet them, which was really cool during their record signing. The day that they launched their newest album, The Maybe Men, they did a record store signing in Baltimore, and I was like, we gotta go! Like that's crazy. So we bought a record, so we got priority. But what they said was if you buy a record, you get priority access. What they didn't say is every person in line needs to buy an item. So we're allowed to walk in line with him, but the last little bit, only one person can go. And I was like, wait, I'll buy another thing. They're like, oh, we're sold out. I'm like, ah. So we send a 5-year-old through the back of the line while we're one aisle over and we're where the exit is. So you can't really leave, you know.
Right,
But like, and I get to film it because I'm actually in the center aisle, which was kind of nice because you couldn't film it in line. So in the
right,
end, it probably works better. I also don't need 2 signed albums.
right.
And so he got to meet the band and tell them that they loved them, and it was really cute. It's on my Instagram. It's actually one of my pinned Instagram stories. But um,
You just told
yeah,
him to
they're
stay in
so
line.
sweet. What?
You just told him to stay in line and like
So
just
the
go.
person who was next to us in line, we had been in line walking with them for like over an hour, right? And they were like, I'll like stand with him, like yeah, and there was only one exit, so it wasn't like that.
But
Although I did chew out the venue. I was like, you should, if they're under 18, allow one parent to go with them. Like,
right.
what the fuck are you doing? Like, like, I just, like, I don't, as a parent, I'm like, that sets yourself up for so much lawsuits. Like,
Yeah.
why? Like, I understand maybe you can't have 20 of your best friends with one album or whatever, because then the line's too long. But
Right.
you're going to tell me that one extra parent's going to make the line that much longer? Like, it's
Right.
like, but anyway. And then, it's funny. One of the other parents called them out on a Google review, and they had the audacity to say that that wasn't what happened. And then I rarely write Google reviews. I was like, how dare you? First of all, that's a parent, and they were telling the truth, and now you're calling them a liar. You guys are liars, and that's exactly what happened. And you let a
Wow.
bunch of people do it, and I think that that's ridiculous. And they're like, well, agree to disagree. I'm like, yeah. I was like, this is the worst customer service ever. You could just say we
Yeah.
made a mistake, we're sorry that happened. That's what you're supposed to say. Like,
Yeah.
get the fuck out of here telling a parent that they misremembered the situation. Like, I can't. So
G and I both rank it as our number one. We don't miss a lot of concerts. Wait, hold on. What do we?
Uh,
Scroll. Rush was
Rush
one of.
was one of the best concerts ever for me. Oh, Daughter was in utero for you too? No. Which one?
Concert. I
Uh,
listen to the music when I
oh,
go
it
through.
must be Rush. I guess it must be Rush. I think if I'm
Yeah.
following. That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I love that Scott Firestone. You just got to meet him last night, through Davey, and I've been a big Scott fan for a while because he was kind of the drummer for the Jukesters unofficially. They like beam him in, and so I've been a big fan of his since he did that. But what they would do is they had all these Rush songs, so he would pre-record all these green screen ones, and they would put them behind him, and they would play guitar and piano over it, right? And eventually, I mean, pretty early on, they convinced Scott to stream as well, and it was like, you could do this too, and so he became a streamer. And Yeah, and it's great because now the reverse is true. Kenny is now in Mexico, and so before he sold his house and all of his possessions and everything, he recorded green screens of his, and he gave it to a bunch of different people, including Carly, who was in chat, and so that way they could play it on their streams and then play with them. So it's just kind of funny that like.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow, what a connected voice we are. Especially on Twitch, you know what I mean? We're just it's like what do they call that? 27 points of connection or some shit like that, and I feel like that's exactly what it is. Like how many people are in here that I know that you know? We're in this like 10 of the same discords. You
Yeah.
pop up and I'm like in Jim the mental health
Right.
coaches thing and I'm like, "Where the frick did you come from?"
It's true. It's true. If you hang out on Twitch enough, you get enough raids. I guess you like, raids are the great equalizer, right? You get to meet so many people across so many different types of genres and people and things. It's funny. I met Jim, the mental health coach, actually fairly early on. He came into Carly's stream, and so I followed him from that. But I actually hadn't gone into it in over a year, so it's one of those things. I've got such a large follower list, I can't go to all of them, and I
Right.
mod 30 something places now, and so like I usually just go to the places I'm modding, but he's phenomenal. So if I'm not modding anybody, I like listening to his take on a lot of stuff. And I saw that
Yes.
you had him on. I actually watched a bit of that
Yeah.
VOD. So
Yeah,
yeah,
he was a great guest. Um
he would be.
uh yeah. And okay, so AJR was up here now.
Yes,
And then
AJR is incredible. People don't know Adam, Jack, Ryan, three Jewish brothers from New York City. Their quick, fast history of them. They lived outside the city. 9/11 happened. The father wanted to move people into the city because everyone was moving out. He wanted to, do the opposite. Just because he felt like New York shouldn't just be abandoned, which I totally understand. Did that. They fell in love with busking in on the street. The three brothers did. They did tap dancing numbers and sort of these things. And so you have like an 8-year-old Jack leading this troop. And he's got two older brothers. They all ultimately go to Columbia. My family has a lot of ties to Columbia. My dad went there, and so my grandfather worked there. And so I almost went to Columbia. That was like top 3 choices for me. So I ended up going to the University of Pennsylvania, but only because I thought I'd get lost in New York because it's just so much going on. I just didn't know if I could
yeah.
live there. And so like it's really cool to watch that growth, and then they kind of blew up, and I didn't even follow them for a very long time. They're really a big TikTok thing and a much younger skewed demographic than
Yeah.
me, but one of Zach's cousins, so one of my cousin's children, huge fan of theirs, and played it for us when we was at a family gathering. I was like, oh, they're kind of cool. And Zach was in this phase where he was obsessed with the Gorillas at like 2.5, where that
Right.
was all he would listen to is the same 3 songs over and over again. And Liz needed a break, and because you love Clint Eastwood, you don't love Clint Eastwood 24/7.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and so she was like, "Oh, you liked AJR? Let me play you a couple of their songs." And so did. He liked it. And then one day she was looking at Meriwether's website, and she saw a upcoming bands for the upcoming summer, and AJR was listed. And he looked over her shoulder, and he was only like 3.5 at this time, and he pointed to it and he said, "What's that?" It says AJR, which is amazing that he could already read
Right.
those letters, but had already identified. He learned to read, by the way, through music. So like he tried to find songs on Apple Music, and so he
Right.
had to learn how
How
to
to
read
read
through that,
them.
which
Yeah.
is kind of a cool way to learn to read. And so he knew what AJR was, and so I and she said, "Well, it's a concert. People go, they get to listen to them, but usually you do it when you're older, blah blah blah. And then so he asked a very innocent question, and he said, "Can I go when I'm this tall?" Because usually like this high to
Yeah.
ride a ride. And she was thinking about it, and people bring babies to concerts,
Yeah.
so like, whether or not that's a good idea or not can be debated. But she said, "I'll ask your dad and see what he thinks." And I said, "Sure." We got her mom to stay a couple extra days. She was, travel, going to be staying with us at that time, and we decide because that way, if there's three adults and one, kid, hopefully, we won't lose them.
Right. Yeah.
So and it was great. We had a blast. We were supposed to be on the field. They sold out to 17,000 people,
Wow.
and I ultimately was like, it was going to rain. And I didn't feel comfortable with him being in a field of 10,000 people. So let's get seats in the pavilion so that way we could be covered. So we got the last seats in the last row of the pavilion. So that way we could put him on our shoulders and we're not blocking anybody. So that ultimately worked really well. We actually did the same thing for Gorillas when we later bought tickets for that. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was great. My parents watched Zara, and her mom, came with us, and had the time of his life, and that was his first ever concert, and it was a really cool experience. And so we like, if you can do that, you can do Gorillas, which in retrospect, Gorillas is a bit more of an adult audience. But and it's also in October, so it was cold and late, so he's like slouched over, like loving every moment, but like barely able to keep his head up. Like, poor guy. Um,
Aw.
but which is why I film these concerts so he can go back and like watch them later, because like I
Yeah.
realize a lot of these experiences that they have at this age, they probably won't be able to remember. And it's cool to like we go back and we watch them, and it's family home videos that they're more interested in instead of these long form hour-long things that they could care less about. So, and it's all
Right.
on YouTube, so he can just watch
Watch
it.
it. Oh, that's so great. That's so great. What a family, a great family moment in time. Moments. You keep making them. I don't know
Yeah.
what's in store for the kids at this point.
Yeah, so we're gonna go see AJR one more time in Capital One Arena, which I'm very excited about because Capital One Arena is my favorite building in the world. So, for as a Caps fan,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of the mecca for them. And so, I've gotten to see so many concerts and events and just historic things, and I've been so fortunate to spend a lot of time in that building. And so I'm super excited to see AJR, which was their dream to sell out Madison Square Garden, as in New York, because they grew up 3 blocks away. They used to walk past it, right?
Wow.
And so now their old house, they still own it because they sometimes use it as a studio just to have in New York. And they're gonna walk from their old house to Madison Square Garden, and they sold out 2 nights of Madison Square Garden, which is just like
Wow.
incredible, for this band. And so I'm just excited. Baltimore was one of the first 4 shows, and this was supposed to be the last show, but Boston got a second show, so that was put at the very end. So it'll be the second to last show of the
Okay.
tour. So it'll be cool to see how it changes. I loved this tour. I don't want to spoil it too much for anyone that might go to it, but they are playing in Kansas City, by the way. I
Oh,
think
I think
actually,
they already played.
no, I thought was it? I thought it was this week. Hold on, AJR. Let's see. Um, is it this one? I don't know. Kansas City, April 19th. It's coming up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so in 9 days. They're playing at the T-Mobile Center.
Yeah,
So
that's the
yeah.
big one. That's where I'm seeing Death Cab. And
Yeah.
where I saw Fleetwood Mac. That was pretty cool too. But the greatest Madison Square Garden thing that I've ever seen was Pink Floyd The Wall.
Oh my God, yeah.
So he did a rendition of it where everything was done, not electronically, duh, panda, where everything was done virtual, right?
Mm,
So the wall was actually a projector, and as
mm,
they built the wall, the projector added more bricks, and then you have the breakout in the middle where they're trying to show things. Bring the Boys Back Home. It was right during the war, so like that had a whole new meaning to bring the boys back home. Chef's kiss.
nice.
I will never not think that
Yeah,
that
I
is
would
one of
love to
my
see a
top three.
concert at Madison Square Garden. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
The Rangers. I heard so much about MSJ, so it's like so built up in my head, and I I'm no knock on it. I think it's a cool building, but I didn't feel like it was significantly different than Cap One Arena, which was clearly built in that same vein.
Hmm.
So I guess I went in thinking it was going to be like drastically. This is the Pantheon. It's going to be so much bigger,
Right.
because it is like older, slightly dimmer, and I mean, just like it. But I think honestly, with the way that it's set up, it would be better because the acoustics are so good for a concert than potentially, for a hockey game.
Game.
So,
Yeah.
um, but it was still a really incredible experience. I'm happy that I got to, to see something there.
So let's change gears a little. Let's
Can I
talk
spill my
about.
water and take a 2-second break?
Oh,
Is that
please do.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be right back.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm out of water too. Well, for those of you who came in on the raid, thank you so much. Thank you, Eram. Thank you, Misfit. I hope you guys are enjoying if you're still here. Um, I am I'm so happy that y'all could make it even though it was an hour later. I was worried, but now I am not. And again, hope you guys are having an excellent night. I'm excited that you're here, and we will continue on. All right.
I'm back.
So hard turn, a perfect love between the both of us
Hmm.
is Pokemon.
Oh, nice.
So,
Yeah, I'm obsessed with Pokemon. It's like,
all
I'm
right,
trying to.
what level are you in Pokemon Go?
Oh, good question. 44.
Okay, I just turned 40 and I've been playing the game since launch.
Yeah, it's rough at the higher levels. The amount of experience it needs is kind of daunting. I mean, and I played it daily for a very long time, so like I totally get that.
Yeah.
I grinded sometimes like really heavily, and then other times I less so. But yeah, 44. I'm about to hit 4 million into 44 out of the 13 million you need
Yeah.
to get to 45. So it's
Wow.
it's a and you need to do 4 tasks for that one too. You have to beat 200 rocket, 50 gym leaders, purify 100 Pokemon, and there was one other task that I already completed, but I forget what it is. So I still need to.
Was
I
it
mean, the
like
purifying one
walk?
will be.
Was it like walk 25 uh
No, it
thousand?
was some Team Rocket thing because I feel like all
Okay.
four of them were Team Rocket. Hold on. Level 45 requirements. Pokemon Go. Here we go. What was it? Here it is.
Hey
45.
Kingdom Breaker, welcome on in.
Yeah, it's 100 Team Go Rocket Grunts. Purify 100 Shadow. Defeat 50 Rocket Leaders. Oh, and earn 10 platinum medals, but that's easy. Yeah.
Got
So I have
it.
a lot more than 10 platinum medals. But yeah, it was yeah, so I still have to beat a leader. I've done it 36 times, but
Okay.
so I need to find more cliffs and sierras, and
I
I'm
just
just slowly working through it.
I just checked on my friend who is equally Pokemon obsessed and he's level 47. And one of the tasks for that is like you have to walk
Yeah, I have
25
all of them up here.
kilometers. Yeah, tell me what it is for if we get to 48.
To get to 48, it's win 30 raids using a team of all unique Pokemon species. You win 3-star raids using only Pokemon with 1500 CP or less. Power up 3 Pokemon to their max CP and earn 20 platinum medals.
Okay. All right, so that must have been the last one he did because it was a walking challenge. Like he had to literally walk a certain distance amount of
So
times.
what there is also at these levels, sometimes certain levels give you an entire separate quest line that you can do, and so the walking one might have been part of like the 47 bonus quest line. So
Oh,
certain
okay.
levels they activate like a new special research for you.
Got it.
So
Yeah, I still have to catch 200 Pokemon in one day, and I'm telling you, I don't think it'll ever happen. I think I'll be stuck at 40 for the rest of my life.
is that one of the 40 ones?
Yeah, to get to 41.
Oh yeah, catch 200 Pokemon in a single day. Yeah, I forgot about that
I
one.
got my highest was I got up to 80, and I was in a
Yeah, you
park.
gotta do it on community day. I
That's
mean,
what
that's
I was told. Do it on a community day.
well, that or actually, the way I believe I did it was like one of those Go Fests, where it's
Mhm.
like a 2-day Go Fest, because then it's like a community day for like 8 hours, so it's like
Right.
a big, long,
Have you
expansive
gone to
one.
any of the Go Fests?
So I've never gone to the in-person ones. I've done all the virtual ones. I did. I had a ticket to the Philadelphia one, and of course, COVID hit,
Right.
and so that one got canceled, which I was really bummed about because I was going to meet a bunch of my favorite content creators. Because before I was super into Twitch, I was really into Pokemon YouTube and like Pokemon Go YouTubers because I knew I really wanted to travel the world playing this game, but I couldn't. So while I was sitting doing work, I would just listen to these vlogs of all these people traveling the world playing this game and sort of live vicariously through it. So,
Right.
yeah, so that was kind of, so I did that for a while. Some of those Go YouTubers started doing Twitch streams for doing main series games. And that's how I came over to Twitch originally. And the first person I followed was Reversal. I still follow him to this day. And he's a big Pokemon YouTuber.
Okay.
Yeah, so then eventually I found Twitch music, and the rest is kind of history.
Right. But I
um,
mean, Pokemon is still a love there. I mean, did you watch the
mm.
cartoons? Did
Oh,
you?
everything. I don't
Yeah.
think there's a single thing of Pokemon that I haven't done. I started playing in '98 on launch week. I had Red and Blue. I had 2 Game Boys. I traded with people under while we were at school. We had the link cable going between chairs and trading and Pokemon cards and all of that. From early on the cartoon, right when it launched, I watched. And I still haven't watched the whole cartoon through. There's too many seasons. But I have
Yeah.
gotten my kids into a couple of the seasons, so we went back and watched JoJo Journeys and a couple of the other ones, and they've watched some of the movies with me as well. And yeah, I've definitely given them the love of Pokemon too. It's cool. The newest. So my son, when he turned 4, got a Switch, which is kind of ridiculous. But like, so he got a Switch Lite, a yellow one, and we've got like the super robust case on it. So that way you could basically throw it and it won't break.
Right.
And so we got it for him because we actually got the Mario RC Racer, which I actually have over there. And so, but I didn't want him to have my Switch all the time, controlling it, right? So I was
Right.
like, you're gonna get your own. And Liz, during the pandemic, she got her own because she was using my Switch all the time. So I was gonna get a light for myself and let her play Animal Crossing because she took over my island. And but ultimately she was like, actually, I like the light, so she took the light, and I went back to mine. And so yeah, we got that for him. But one of my favorite things to do, and obviously his favorite games are Mario games, like Mario Kart and all that. But what I keep on trying to get him to go back to, and he has been doing it a little bit, is I got 2 copies of Pokemon Violet. And so he's got one, I've got one, because we both like that legendary and didn't like the Scarlet. I was trying to
Yeah.
convince him to go Scarlet, but no
No.
dice.
No dice.
And what do you have Pokemon
Yeah.
stuff?
I got Scarlet. I got
Oh, you
Scarlet.
did. All
Yeah.
right, well, that's good. Maybe I
Mhm.
can trade with you.
Yeah. There you go.
Um, but yeah, so I loved it because my dream was always to have an open world Pokemon game that you could play with friends, and the fact that my son's very first, like, I mean, he played Pokemon Go with me from a very little age. From 2 or 3 when we were in a line, like I let him throw the ball just as a way to like,
Keep him
yeah,
entertained. Yeah.
entertained. And so that's how he learned about all the Pokemon. And but it was cool that I can jump into his game and he can jump into mine, and we can like run around on legendaries together, catching. And I actually used his game to kind of break it a little bit because he hadn't gotten through any of the badges yet. He'd just been messing around, right? So I found out that if I send from my Pokemon Go to his Pokemon Go, because I gave him my alt account, and then he can send it to Pokemon Home and then put it in, and then I can trade it to myself. A lot of the characters that were locked out because I had gotten the first badge, I can send legendaries to myself that way through this convoluted method, because they never assumed that someone would get a legendary before their first badge.
Right.
And So like I have a whole team of like all of my favorite because I have so many extra legendaries from Pokemon Go. What am I gonna do with them?
Right.
And so I just have these huge like army of legendaries on my account, and it's just kind of funny.
What's your Fab Five?
My favorite 5 Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I actually categorize. I'm such a nerd. We got the. I actually have my team,
Yeah.
which is right here that I made. And so I think
Okay.
you can see
So
there.
Nidorian. No. That's not Nidorian. It's a shiny Charizard. It's
Yeah.
a Gobat. No, what's the Golbat?
No, it's actually a shiny Aerodactyl.
Okay, shiny Aerodactyl. I'm sorry, I'm trying.
So these
Muck. Shiny
uh,
Muck.
yeah, it's a shiny Shadow Muck. At the time, that was super rare. So these are like my like six like holy grail ones. Not necessarily my like perfect team, but my favorite six things I've ever caught. So the shiny Muck was super rare because the only way to get a shiny Shadow is through a boss.
Right.
Um, that shiny lucky Gyarados is from my wife. Then you also have the shiny Shadow Weavile that I got also from a Team Go Rocket boss, and that Aerodactyl was actually from Pokemon Worlds. They had Pokemon Worlds one year in DC, and my family was actually out of town in Colorado, so I had a 3 days free, and so I actually got a 3 day pass and got to go and watch all the people do all the competitions and the Pokken tournaments, and
Yeah.
it was really cool. It was actually the very first time that Pokemon Go was featured at Pokemon Worlds, and so there was all these spawns, but also some of my favorite creators. I don't know if you follow Pokemon YouTube at all, but
Nope.
there's a creator called Trainer Tips,
Okay.
and he's got like 2 million followers or something, and he's great. And he was casting the championship. He was like the announcer for it, and so I got to meet him afterwards, and we got to talk and catch Pokemon next to him. And so I thought he was like filming a video, and I was like, "That's so cool." And so that shiny Aerodactyl I caught at that event. So like that's like such a huge like
Pinnacle. Yeah.
moment, right? And then this one I love. So Swampert, first of all, is very broken in Pokemon Go, just in general.
Okay.
And so this one I actually got in Barcelona, Spain. It's one of the very few community days I've ever done in a different country. I actually got a one of those Wi-Fi packs, to give me internet while I was traveling abroad, and because Liz loved Ingress back then, and I loved Pokemon Go, and we knew there was going to be a community day, and uh, so I think that's kind of cool just to have it from
Yeah.
Barcelona.
Oh, for
So
sure. Mine is what do I usually do? I usually do Gyarados. What did this? I'm trying to figure out who my winning team was. Gyarados,
yeah.
um, Celebi, I think was one of
Mm,
them.
I love Celebi.
So cute. Um,
My shiny Celebi is named Zara, and my shiny Mew is named Zach in my game because you have like one of each. So
yeah, that's so great. I love
yeah.
that. And then some sort of usually I start fire. I
Mhm.
do.
I've always been a fire starter for
Yeah.
sure, and that's why if people don't know, my mascot on my channel is a shiny Charizard.
Charizard.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so specifically, I just love um, that look. Let me see. Here I have my fire emote was one of my favorite emotes. So like,
Ooh.
yeah, so yeah, because you can see right here behind me in the game
Oh, look
is
at him go.
the best buddy.
Mine is
So
my favorite is friggin' Togekiss.
oh yeah, Togekiss is great.
Duh.
What a great, such a broken Pokemon, especially if you're like a dragon. Like it just wipes the floor with them.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
And so that's my walking buddy is a Togepi, so I can get more stuff for my Togekiss. Okay, so we've done Pokemon. We have 22 minutes left. Let's learn some more about you.
All right.
um, we're gonna go into let's go into Asian food.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's my favorite. I had so I've always had such a affinity for all things Japanese, so I love like sushi. I had a dream to go to Japan. And so growing up, my biggest inspiration is my grandmother. She was a painter, and she used to travel around the world with me, and I would basically carry her bags and she would take me to all these incredible places in like the south of France. And I know I talked about impressionism as a thing that is super inspirational for me. But one of the cool trips, the last big trip that I got to go on with her when she was 90 years old, was to Tokyo, and while I was in college, and went to Tokyo and to Kyoto for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And what an incredible experience! I was studying animation at the time. I was obsessed with production IG. And so my dad was an ambassador at the time, and it's kind of funny. He's actually on Wikipedia, which is a strange thing that my you know, I'll let you, since he is Wikipedia, but I'll put it there.
Yes.
But so he took me to he called the embassy and said, can he get to meet the people at Production IG? And what I did not know is they actually refused to meet foreigners. And so in fact, for a movie, uh, is for Kill Bill. They wanted to use an animation house, and they wanted to use that. And so he actually went to them, to their doorstep, to beg for them to let him in. And at the time, they were making Ghost in the Shell 2, and they were like, no, all of our animations are doing that. And Quentin Tarantino was like begging them. He's like, you got to do this for me. You got to do this for me. And so they stopped production on Ghost in the Shell 2 and made Kill Bill, volumes 1 and 2, the
Wow.
animation scenes. And he was one of the only other Americans to ever like be able to set foot in that building. And so they gave me and her a tour of it. I got to meet the writers of Ghost in the Shell. And at the time in America, the dub was happening on Cartoon Network, and it was the second to last episode. It was right before I left, so I never saw the last episode. And so I was talking to him about it, and he was like, well, do you want to see, do you want to know what happens? And I was like, no, 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 I really want to, like, I'll see it when I get home. Like, I taped it or whatever. And so he was very impressed. I had the writer of the episode right there, but I was like, I wanted to see it for myself because I loved that story. And in fact, I was such a nerd, and in college I was taking web design classes, that for one of my projects in Flash, I wish I could play it for
Love
you.
it.
It's on my server still, but unfortunately the browser doesn't play Flash anymore.
Hmm.
But I still have the Flash game if I ever can find something to play a SWF file. And it was a Ghost in the Shell. Do you know anything about Ghost in the Shell?
I know
Or
some of it. I know
yeah,
the basis of it. I know what it is.
did you ever see like the movie that came out later with Scarlett Johansson?
I don't think so.
Yeah, they did like a Americanized version. It was okay. Um, uh, but so I made this cool Flash game where the whole thing, it's basically the Matrix was kind of built on what Ghost in the Shell does in some ways, where you could hack each other's brains and their cyber like security and stuff like that. So um, it's an incredible storyline where people are hacking each other, and they're trying to find it out, and your public security section 9 is going to try to stop them. But so I had this idea, what happens if you were in their brain and you're projecting these visuals that pop out as part of the animation style in this? And so I cut them out and I photoshopped them together, and I made a Flash game where you could pull up dossiers on each of the different characters, and it's like you're in their computer program, right? And
Wow.
so it was kind of fun because I asked the creators, like, do you have a computer with the internet on it? I mean, of course they do, right?
Right.
And so he did. And so I pulled up my own servers. The benefit of running your own web design company since 2000 is I have my own server, and I was like, here, I put it on my own website. And so I got to show him this game that I made, the creator of the thing. And so it's just like this really
Oh
kind
my
of a
God.
cool moment. And for her to get to see, because she was a painter, doesn't know much about animation, but they got to show the cell animations and how they created it, and walk through the whole process. And
Wow.
what a cool, incredible experience. But as part of that, is love sushi, and going back to where the story comes from. And I had one of the coolest experiences there. I walked into a back alley, walked in. They don't speak any English.
Love it.
Ordered just I picked to a random thing on the menu, and they keep on bringing out more rounds of sushi, more rounds of, and I have no idea what I ordered. So I don't know when it's going to stop, how many it is, how expensive this is going to get, because we're in Tokyo. Like, and it just kept on coming and kept on coming and kept on coming. And I was like, how does this end? And like, and so like, I overheard somebody speaking English. A couple of I was on like a bar,
Yeah.
and I was like, and I went, I whispered to them, I was like, "How do you make it end?" They're like, "Oh, you say this, and then that's the end, and then they tally it up and all that." I was like,
Right.
"Oh, thank you." And so I said that. They bowed, they do the thing, and incredibly enough, it was only like $17. I was expecting it to be like hundreds of dollars, like what I mean. But it
Oh
was like
my
five
God.
rounds of sushi. It was incredible. So sushi's always been a big part of I'm so lucky at University of Pennsylvania they offered sushi in the eatery that you could use so I would for every day for lunch just go by and swipe my card and just like
Yep.
charge sushi on my parents. I was like, oh, it's good brain food. So
Yeah, no, I mean I tell this story every single anytime somebody says the secret word, which is sushi, which is Galvus and I met at a sushi bar.
oh wow, that's so
So
cool.
like he was sitting in a sushi bar, he was a regular. I came in, I started talking with him, he started talking with him, and then next thing you know, we're dating and now married.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah,
How
all
many years have you guys been married?
2017. So
Oh, okay.
7 years, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Seven
We
years
got
this
married.
year.
Yeah, we got married in 2014, so we're coming up on
Okay.
10 this year, so that's crazy.
Yeah.
You never know. I've always been a big fan. I actually found a brand new sushi place near my parents' house, which they love because you can call ahead and they'll go pick it up on the way to drive here. So like once a week, like I'm like, yes. So that's how I get my
That's the
sushi
way to
fix
do
these
it.
days.
What's
Yeah.
your go-to?
Oh man, I love so many different things. So I love rolls. Lots of just advanced crazy ones. Obviously, if I'm just gonna go with something very simple, you could go like with a dragon roll or I do like poke bowls as well, and uh, yeah, I like lots of different stuff, but I've tried almost every type of roll imaginable. Spicy, tuna and salmon, and I find like a lot of places have just different ones, like there's like the green monster at this place, which is cool. And
Right.
there's also like the Donkey Kong, which I love just the name because my son's very favorite video game character is Donkey Kong.
Oh, that's great.
He would never try it. He literally eats the same five things every day.
Uh,
But maybe someday he'll eat a Donkey Kong. So
yeah. No, I will eat sashimi and I will eat salmon and I will eat all the salmon. If they kept bringing me out salmon, there would be no stop word. They'd
yeah,
have to stop me. Like,
yeah. Salmon's my favorite as well. It's funny. My wife's favorite is tuna, but I'm definitely partial.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I could just eat a pound and a half of just like
It's ironic that like scuba diving is like my favorite thing to do, but like sushi is my favorite food, right? You think that there would be some sort of divide there,
scooping
but
out dinner. All right.
exactly, exactly. I have never speared my dinner. I have, on the other hand, done fishing in the past and fished and then caught my dinner. So that's kind of cool. But
That's cool.
yeah, it's sushi is incredible. It's yeah, it's I don't know. I always felt like it was really great brain food. I don't know. For some reason, I felt like I was smarter whenever I ate it.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me about Chinese cuisine now. Tell me about your go-to order.
Yeah. Oh man, General Tso's chicken is probably my go-to order in most places. I definitely like mushu pork as sort of a secondary option.
Mhm.
But there's other things that they don't have General Tso's. There's always like the sesame chicken and sweet and sour. I can get down with those things as well. And my favorite thing actually for Chinese food is a little bit different. I love dim sum, which
Okay.
is really awesome. And dim sum we have a wonderful place just 7 minutes from our house, and a friend of mine super into like trying all different types of food, and he looked it up and found it, and very early, like a couple months after we moved in, he came and visited, and we went and tried this place out, and we were the only white people in the entire place. And so what's cool about it is I don't have you ever done dim sum?
No.
So dim sum is really cool. They have carts that they come around with all these dishes and stuff on it, and you point to it, and they give it to you, and then they mark off on the piece of paper what you've got, and it's family style, and so everyone's grabbing little bits of each one of these things, and
Oh.
it's incredible. So imagine dumplings,
Oh my god, I love
lots of different
dumplings.
yeah, lots of different dumpling like things, and or bread with meat filled with them, or almost
Mm,
everything, at least at my place, and each one is a little bit different, is shrimp based. So there's tons of like shrimp dumplings and shrimp pancakes and shrimp so like
right.
all of that sort of stuff. As well as like normal dumplings and things of that nature as well. And you could also order from their Chinese food menu as
Menu.
well.
Right.
Um, Sometimes we cheat the system and we order ahead the dim sum and go pick it up and bring it back here, because the problem is depending on where you're sitting, the stuff may have already been grabbed. So like
Grabbed.
the key is to get there like 30 minutes early and get the spot right next to the kitchen. So that way everything has to go through you, right?
Okay.
So that's sort of the pro tip there.
Yeah, now I
And,
know.
yeah, it
Today
was
I learned.
yeah, dim sum is great, and yeah, I highly recommend it. It's just a cool way. It's kind of like Chinese brunch, if you will. That's what they do for it, and for big holidays like Chinese New Year's and stuff like that. I mean, the places are mobbed, and
Yeah,
so.
I'm sure. Yeah, and so okay, Davey ate chicken feet.
Mm. I've tried it. Don't love it. It's fine. It's just kind of chewy. Yeah, it's yeah, dim sum last week with coworkers. It was great. Yeah, it's and Stuart says he lives for dim sum. Yeah, it's dim sum is great. I highly recommend people try it out. My favorite, the pork rolls, which are
Oh
basically
yeah.
a bread with sweet meat inside of it, which is
Mm-hmm.
incredible. So those are definitely some of the tops, but they have so many different things. And yeah, I mean, even the rice during dim sum is like mixed with all sorts of cool stuff, and it's called sticky rice, and it's like a whole lump with all
How do
sort of stuff.
you understand what you're getting? I mean, they come past you and you just like pick a
You kind of at
plate.
this point you can ask. I mean, sometimes your English is better than others, and often we just try it, and then you know for the next time whether that's going to be one that you like or you don't like. I mean, each dish is like $3 or $4, so there's some risk, but not crazy risk to it,
Right.
And ultimately, like we can tend to feed a family of four who are eating it. My kids are eating their breakfast that we bring separately, but
Right.
for like under $100, which isn't bad, So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great. Yeah, I love pork dumplings.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. It's
Yeah, I
pork
do too. Do
dumplings and beef
you
lo
like them
mein
fried or do steamed?
steamed.
Mm-hmm. I like both, but yeah, I
Yeah.
can see.
No, I love like the dumpling feeling. I love
Mhm.
dipping it in the sauce. I love everything about
Yeah, it's
dumplings.
funny because there's such a connection between Chinese people and Jewish people. Like it kind of reminds me like almost like a matzo ball soup and
Yeah.
sort of the sort of that homey feel of that sort of cuisine. And it's interesting that both don't have dairy in them, which is something that people don't really think about, which means that they're kosher, which is kind
Mhm.
of cool, except for not the shrimp.
Right.
But I don't keep kosher. But I know that a lot of people like Chinese food because you can make it kosher, and there's such a great relationship with them. I mean, there's such that history of like on Christmas for
I was
Jewish
just
people.
gonna say, and they're open on Christmas. I
Exactly.
was just gonna say that. That's so funny.
I wanted
Um.
to congratulate you, by the way. You hit 750 followers today. I don't know if you noticed that,
Oh
but
yeah, I hit my follower goal. I
yeah,
think it was Primordial Sounds was the one who
nice.
hit me over the edge.
That's awesome. Yeah, I saw it yesterday at 7:49, and I told him Andy I was gonna be on tonight, so that's kind of cool. And it's funny because I hit 750 this week too, which is kind of cool
Oh,
that we both hit that
congratulations!
same milestone in the same week. But yeah, it was a goal of mine before season 9 of my podcast to hit that milestone. Just because I thought it'd be kind of a fun way to start a season, and so we did. So it was kind of cool. But yeah, it's interesting being a podcaster because the growth curve is very different than like one that is like a gamer or a musician and stuff like that, which is
Yeah,
it's quite the grind. But I love interview style shows. It's why Davey and I became fast friends very early on in his podcast.
yeah, and it's crazy because at the beginning of the year, I think I was at 600,
Hmm.
and
Oh
now
wow.
it's April, and um, if not the end of last year, because 1 year ago I was at 400, and I was celebrating 400.
Wow, that's awesome.
So like
That's a
the
big, yeah.
curve has been fantastic, but it's not something that I really care about.
Yeah, no, I understand. I always still like celebrating the milestones, and stuff like
Yeah.
that because I think that it's important, especially at least for the community, and it's something to celebrate. And
Yeah.
but
Well,
yeah, it's a fun thing. And Davey makes a good point. Yeah, it's for podcasters. It's hard, to get growth like that. I've been fortunate to grow a lot in the last year as well. And I think the key to that, for anybody that was ever curious, is just be a good member of a lot of communities, and just
yep.
not looking for it, but just be a good member of the communities, and it will come.
Yep. Absolutely. And raids are the answer.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard because no one really raids a sports channel
Oh, yeah.
except for Davey, but I very much appreciate, and a couple of other people. But yeah, it's interesting doing sports on here. I definitely think eventually I'll probably become a variety streamer and do art. But art's my day job, and I have done some art streams, but it's definitely, sports is not a thing that's searched out for, I will say, on
Yeah.
Twitch. Yeah,
Yeah. But you could be the headliner. You could be the one that changes it all.
it's true.
Um okay, so we're going to end on probably two topics here. So,
Okay.
we're going to talk about when you put the Cowboys, did you
Hmm.
mean football or did you
Yeah.
mean okay,
Yes.
cool.
No, I don't hate actual. It's I mentioned that on a podcast today, or on a stream today. That I was, one of the things that I dislike are the Cowboys, and then somebody says, "I'm a cowboy. I love horses." I'm like, no, 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 not you, the Dallas Cowboys. And so, um, but yeah, so this rivalry is ingrained into me. I was born at halftime of a Cowboys Redskins game. And so it's kind of funny that the Cowboys were winning at halftime. I was born, and the Redskins came back and won that game. And so ever since that moment, the rivalry has been there. And it's just interesting because my wife is from Texas, right?
Oh
So
boy.
that becomes a I keep on moving it the wrong way. There you go. So the very first time I met all of her family, I wore all Redskins gear, knowing that they were all diehard Cowboys fans, just as the way to introduce them and shake their hand and be like, "This is who I am." And it's
Right.
funny because they all came to the party dressed in all Cowboys gear. So the initial pictures of us all together is us all there. And it's so funny because her uncle, for a long time, because it was a great picture we got of the two of us together, had his profile picture as that, but cropped me out.
That's
So yeah,
amazing.
yeah, so the rivalry is there, going both ways, and I have a Joe Jacoby signed hat above me, who's a very famous Redskin, or yeah, I'm not gonna call him a commander. I want to, but it's like he's not a commander. He never
Right.
played at that time. So,
Right.
but yeah, it's an interesting relationship with Cowboys fans, because her whole family is, and so I often go to the beaches down in Corpus Christi. I just was there for spring break, and so often I'm the only Redskins Commanders fan on the beach, right? So
Right.
I knew Liz was the one when our first year of dating. I My parents had already bought tickets for us to go to Grand Cayman again, and she was going to go back home and see her family. So we didn't spend Christmas, New Year's together, which was really hard for me. Like, we would ultimately like FaceTime, every day and stuff. But she went on the day of the Cowboys versus Redskins game in 2012, and it was the last game of the season. It would decide who would make the playoffs, that year, and who would win the division. And she had the audacity on the beach to wear full Redskins gear to represent me when everybody else on the beach was wearing Cowboys gear because it was the day of the game. And so there's pictures of her with a sea of Cowboys fans, and the one I was like, I gotta marry this girl.
Yeah.
And so it's it's so funny because in our vows, she took the Redskins and I took Texas A&M, the Aggies, as part of our vows. So
Yeah.
I will always root for the Aggies, and she will always root for the Redskins. And in fact, we had a you know what a groom's cake is?
It's made specifically for the groom. I just remember one being like a crocodile because the guy was in Florida or something. But it's basically just a cake for the groom that can be anything he wants.
I love that an Eagles fan just came in the chat, right? And the Cowboys are on the screen. No, no, it's okay, Keith. We're talking about how much we hate them. So like, so you can join in on this conversation as well, because the only people that hate the Cowboys, maybe more than the Redskins Commanders fans, is Eagles fans. And well, I think Cowboys Eagles think that their rivalry is bigger, but
Right.
we hate the Cowboys the most, right? So it's, it's just kind of, it's, I don't think it's reciprocated. Cowboys hate the Eagles the most. Redskins and Commanders fans hate the Cowboys the most, right? So it's this weird dynamic, but yeah, it's um yeah, so in the South, groom's cakes are very popular, where the groom gets a cake to go with it, which I had never even really heard of this before, but I was like, no, it's a real thing. I'm like, all right, whatever. We had our wedding in Texas, so
Yeah.
like, all right, let's do it. And I like, it can be anything. And they're like, yeah, it can be anything. I was like, I can make all these Cowboys fans eat a Redskins helmet. And they're like, yes, you can. I'm like, fantastic. Let's do it. So my groom's cake is a Redskins helmet, beautifully done. We got a place in Austin to make it, and because they usually are doing like Texans helmets or whatever, or Cowboys helmets probably, and so it was pretty great to make them all. It was a
Abs-
red velvet cake. It was a great cake. So that was kind of my just dessert, right?
yeah.
So,
That's
but
fantastic. Oh my god. Those are great stories. um and so it's funny because I ended up being a Chiefs fan by proximity.
mm-hmm.
Before they were like this dynasty, whatever. It was
That's
just
good.
by proximity.
But I
And
thought you said you were only a sports fan the last couple of years.
yeah, like I sorry, couple, maybe two, maybe five, but it's a
Yeah,
couple.
they've been pretty good for a while. They've won 3 out of the last 6. No,
Yeah, and I've been like in 5 years.
all right, fair enough. 5. Okay, so you literally like just before. I was like,
Yeah.
it's like it can't be like it was long before.
No,
Yeah.
no. Yeah, it's picked a good time to be a Chiefs fan. Well, man, Kansas City just like blew up. There was a shooting at the friggin' rally down at
No.
Union Station. And I'm just like, come on, guys. Like, this is not the face we want to show for like
Yeah.
winning. You know what I'm saying? Like, Philadelphia turns the whole town upside down. But I don't
No.
know of anybody
Or
that's getting.
Vancouver, they do riots when they lose.
Yeah, but I don't know anybody getting shot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty crazy for
Like, all
sure.
right, Missouri, I guess. Let's do this. So I'm not yeah, that thing happened one time, but that was wild. Yeah, it's just when fans, that's my only downside about sports, right? So,
Hmm.
again, becoming a sports fan and then this time, whatever. But it's my biggest gripe against sports, which are the dire fans that are negative.
Yeah.
Okay, there's
For,
fun rivalries, there's fun whatever, but somebody who saw like another person wearing a jersey, and this hasn't happened that I've known of, but I'm sure it has, and goes ahead and like stabs them because they're wearing the wrong jersey.
oh, sure. I
People
mean, there's a
getting
lot of hate and vitriol that happens, especially around drinking, in these games. And some of these rivalries are very serious. And, I would say the most famous of that is soccer's and hooligans, so like those are these huge groups of people that are, that do it. And, yeah, so yeah, it can be. I'll have to say, I have never seen a fight. Have I ever seen a fight? Maybe at a football game. I don't even think so. Um, and so I've never seen anything get too serious. I mean,
That's
people
good.
trash talk, and I was a
Yeah.
season ticket holder for the Redskins for a couple of years, and so lots of Eagles fans are very mouthy. Um, and yeah, it can be pretty belligerent when they're drunk. But so like, um, but I mean, it's usually in good fun, and usually the tailgate, usually the fans of both teams, kind of get together because they're there for the same reason.
Right,
And
the love of
yeah,
football.
yeah, my season tickets were on the road side, quote unquote, of FedEx Field, although the road teams seem to have more fans on all sides of the field. So I
Right.
don't know if there's a really roadside. But yeah, I never really felt like I was like it wasn't safe or I wasn't bad. I don't know if I would take my son to a football game though. I'll be totally honest, just because it's just very crude and very loud and very like I don't know, just like I think if I'm taking him a sport, I've taken him a hockey game and we sat on the glass and that was really fun. And I
Yeah.
guess there is physical violence there, but I don't know. For some reason, it doesn't seem fighting is much rarer in today's hockey than it was back when I was growing up. And so, I mean, you're kind of lucky if you get to see a fight in my mind.
Right,
Like,
right.
so where football.
there was a recent one between the Rangers and the Devils, though.
You
Yeah.
know what's so funny is I have a great video of that fight. So I have a friend of mine who is a podcaster, he's on a hiatus, but covers all the New York teams, and he actually lives in DC, so he covers them all the New York teams while being in DC, which is kind of an interesting perspective. And he went back to Madison Square Garden for that game, and he had gotten tickets months and months ago, but there had been bad blood between those two teams in the previous game between the Devils and the Rangers. And he goes and immediately 5 seconds in, drop gloves fight. A couple minutes later, drop gloves fight. Over 100 penalty minutes in the first period.
Yep.
In that one, and he filmed the whole thing, and he's screaming the whole time, like, yeah! And it's just the best 2-minute video ever. I'm like, he's way too into this, but like, I also don't blame him, because like, I've never seen a line brawl in any game I've ever gone to, so like, I would be probably going nuts too. So
Yeah,
yeah,
there was
what a
there
wild
was on
sport.
Facebook, one of the things had scrolled down or whatever, and there was like, so I guess this happened because
Yeah,
I'm from New Jersey, and so a lot of people are either Rangers or Devils
the
fans,
Devils
and
fans. Yeah, makes
so
sense.
it's all over my feed.
Yeah,
Everybody's
I'm
like, I
sure.
can't believe this.
Yeah, because he just directly messaged that to me. I actually sent it to a couple of people today through Discord, just because I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh my god, this video is amazing!" I was
Mhm.
laughing. So, but I mean, the Rangers kind of they do this. Like the last couple players that they got in, right before in the trade deadline, whereas a couple more of these, I don't want to call them thug figures, but people who will throw down, and be more, aggressive. And every player kind of has to be able to still skate and be a good player in today's hockey. You can't have anybody in the true enforcer role that they once
Right.
had. But we don't have a ton of enforcers on the Caps anymore, other than Tom Wilson, who everyone loves to hate.
Right. All right. So we're gonna call it there. I think
There you go.
that was good. This was a really I we didn't get to many topics because we had so much fun. I loved
Yeah,
this. This was a
yeah,
great conversation and a
I
great
had a good time.
interview. You are a fascinating human being. I hope you know that.
Thank you.
And you've lived some good years, at least in my eyes. That
Yeah. If anyone wants to see any of these stories, I'll definitely check out that YouTube. I love documenting life and sharing
yeah.
it. And I feel so blessed. I've had such a fortunate life that I just, want to be able to share some of these experiences with other people, and concerts and stuff like that. And, it'll be fun. I have to decide what I want to do with this AJR video I shot of my son, because we were so far away from them, but it's mostly just his reaction to it, which is adorable. But I don't know if people are going to care about a 5-year-old's reaction to it. But
Oh, I'm
he
sure
was
it'll
like
be
rocking
adorable.
out and having the time of his life. So yeah.
Um, but I want to thank everyone for being here. This has been a really fun dynamic between chatters and streamers and interviewees here, which has been great. I love that. I love the full circleness. Um, thanks for the spot on tonight. Appreciate you managing my goofy behavior. Y'all are gems. No, you, Davey. No, you. Um, so we're actually going to go over to a music streamers. They're called the Bylines.
Oh yeah.
Um, and we're gonna go over to them. They do Elliott Smith, which is crazy to me.
Hmm.
But yeah. So it says raid, and then the raid call is just really bad because I haven't fixed it, and I say this every time, and I still never fix it. Um, let's do this. Perfect. Again, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you, man.
And yeah, let's go. Let's all go on our raid. Raid now.